Before I put you under oath, yes, please put your cell phone on silent, and we ask that you not entertain any calls or text messages during the course of this proceeding. Thank you again for returning. Mr. Pai, would you kindly raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm, under penalty of law, that the testimony that you're about to provide or give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Again, for the record, would you kindly state your name, your title, and the agency you represent?
Michael Pai, Public Auditor, Office of the Public Auditor, Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pai, for the record, you have been asked to come back and answer some more questions at the request of some members. With that, I would like to turn it over to the Vice Speaker.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Mr. Public Auditor. I just want to ask some more questions to further clarify the meet and greet event that you had communicated with the governor on. And I think we did mention that we went over those documents before in our previous meeting. But let me just say again that on December 13, 2010, you submitted your report and recommendations of ethics investigation of the Attorney General's of the former AG Ed Buckingham. Did you not?
Yes.
And then in the January 6, 2011, the governor wrote back to you refuting the letter. What was it? In your letter of December 10. And he went item by item saying why he disagreed with your findings.
Yes.
And then on January 25th, 2011, you wrote back and told him that, and that was in the second paragraph of your January 25th letter. First and most importantly, we agree with you that the matter is closed and confidential. OPA has fulfilled its constitutional and statutory mandate by issuing its findings and recommendations to you. No further action is contemplated. And then again, you reiterate your position in your last letter, and as stated, quote, as stated above, OPA considers this matter closed and it will make no further comments regarding the investigation or its findings and recommendations. Did you write that letter?
Yes.
Mr. or Mike, is there anything in writing that says that you have reopened the investigation? Because as of January 25th, you made it very clear that the matter is closed. Is there something in writing from you as the public auditor saying that the case has been reopened, and for what reasons?
No, there is nothing in writings. There was no further investigation work to be done. The investigation shows that the Attorney General violated CNMI laws and that the governor took no action.
I want to yield for now. But there is nothing in your possession, there is nothing in writing for the committee to know that you have reopened the case. As
No.
the public auditor for the CNMI, that you have reopened the case.
No, there is nothing in writing, and there is no requirement for opening a case to be in writing or closing it to be in writing.
But if it is not in writing, do you have anything that would tell us that you have reopened the case?
No,
That
there's
the
not.
case is reopened.
Well, the investigation is complete and the report is complete. So those violations of the law now have to be, action has to be taken on it, and the governor did not take any action on it.
I will yield for now for the other members.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before I recognize any other member, Mike, can I just ask you a question
Yes.
regarding your investigation? I want to understand the procedure for when conducting investigations and your investigators go out and interview witnesses or people.
Yes.
What is the process of investigating? Let me clarify. After, let's say I'm the investigator. I've just interviewed someone. After they conduct the interview, at some point, I would, I guess, draft up some kind of report of the investigation.
Yes.
What happens after that? Do I go back and present the individual with a copy of the report, a draft copy? And is that person required to acknowledge it or to sign it or what? Just kind of take us through that process. And maybe this is a question we should be asking Mr. Hasselback, since he is the lead person in any investigation. But if you can answer it, we'd appreciate hearing it.
I can answer in general terms. The investigators conduct their field work, which may involve a lot of interviews, gathering of documents. They work very closely with the head of the investigation unit, who is a legal counsel, and they work together on determining whether they have enough evidence or whether more evidence needs to be obtained, whether they need to interview other people. But once the legal counsel is satisfied that the evidence is complete, then we consider the field work complete. And normally the investigation reports are not public information. We may prepare a report based on the evidence gathered, but we have to be careful in how we prepare the report, because I think the statutes might require confidentiality, and so normally it's not like an audit report where there is certain to be a report issued for public information. On investigations it's different. It's usually confidential.
Thank you. If I were interviewing Mr. Smith, as the investigator, am I required to go back and show Mr. Smith if any of his statements are true or correct or wrong?
No, there's no requirement to show him, the report. That's usually cleared up during the interview process, and the investigator will usually have a third person there to witness the interview.
Is there any requirement for any witness the person being interviewed to sign off on my on my interview?
There's no requirement, but the interviewed person may prepare a statement and sign it and give it to the investigator.
Thank you. One last one. At the end of my investigative work, once I've drafted the report of my investigation, is there any requirement that I bring that back to the witness or witnesses to confirm if what I reported is in fact true, correct, or accurate?
No requirement.
Thank you, Mr. Pai. Any other members? Representative Guerrero.
Hi, Mr. Pai.
Hi,
how are you? Just want to walk me through again the process in which this happened. You were investigating the Attorney General. Okay.
Yes.
So you completed your investigation. You sent it to the governor. The governor chose to do nothing. Right. Okay. In the Constitution, does it give us an alternate in a situation like that?
I'm not familiar enough with the Constitution to say yes or no on that question. I'd have to go back and research that.
Okay. Counsel, what does the Constitution say on something like that? If you are investigating the governor as well as the Attorney General.
There's no specific provision in the Constitution that addresses that fact pattern. The only provisions are the ones that set forth the responsibilities and duties of the Attorney General and the Public Auditor, just in general terms.
Isn't there a segment in there that states the OPA? I don't have the Constitution with me right now, but isn't there a segment in there that states that the Office of the Public Auditor shall appoint an Attorney General to investigate the Attorney General and to investigate the governor?
No, that's in the statute.
Oh, so that's not in the Constitution, it's a statute.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Pai, did you appoint Mr. Hasselback to investigate the AG and investigate the governor?
No, he came on board after that investigation was completed. He started working at OPA in February.
Okay. Did you did you reopen the case and appoint him?
We didn't open it for further investigation because the results of the investigation were already contained in the report. But he's the head of the investigations unit, so he has access to all of our investigation work.
So, what took place? What did he do? Did he just look over the work and then decide to take them to court, or did he do any further investigation into the matter?
I don't think you'd have to ask Mr. Hasselback, but I don't think there was any further investigation work since the report stands on its own. But for his decisions, I think you have to ask Mr. Hasselback.
Sir, I'm asking you. You're the public auditor. You're the head of the department.
Yes.
I mean, no disrespect. I'm asking you. You're the boss. So you would know what your subordinates are doing, sir.
Yes, he keeps me informed. Oh, thank you.
For other members, Representative De La Cruz.
Thank you, thank you, Chair. But at this time, I will yield my time to others who are willing to pose the question. Thank you.
Chairman Torres, did you raise your hands?
Hi, good morning.
Looking over the document here that your office provided us, I see a draft letter to Senator Paul Mangona, drafted for you, responding to his request to audit or conduct an investigation on the ARA, to his Resolution 17-63. George draft this letter for your signature, but it was signed by Rosa Banta for you, right?
Yes.
Does that letter to Paul Mangona delegate the authority to investigate the Hatch Act or the meet and greet? To activate the report that you already closed.
I read that letter. It's specific to the ARA investigation.
So what makes George bring back to life of the meet and greet case that OPA and signed by you that it's closed and no further action needed?
There's no further investigation work on the Hatch Act violations, but it's into the legal phase now.
But when you signed it closed, did you give him verbally authority verbally or signed document that you are rolling now?
There's nothing in writing, but it's internal delegation because he is head of the investigation unit and the legal counsel.
Are you for now?
Mr. Chairman.
Maybe before I recognize the Vice Speaker, this same line of questioning has been raised and answered by both Mr. Pai and Mr. Hasobak on at least 2 to 3 different occasions and has been answered. I don't know if like Mr. Torres was here when that happened or he was not, but it's being very redundant. I recognize the Vice Speaker.
I beg to differ with you, Mr. Chairman. If we are not satisfied with something, nothing should prevent us from asking our questions. Mr. Mike Pai.
Recognize the Vice Speaker.
To me, it's very clear that when that letter that you sent to the governor said that the matter is closed and is not to be prosecuted, it's just that it is closed and it's not to be prosecuted. So what made you decide? Who gave Hasobak the authority to prosecute the case?
The letter doesn't say...
I think you have to just say very simply, don't tell us anything more than we need. Just say, you said in that letter to the governor that the matter is closed and it is not to be prosecuted. If it was to be prosecuted, it would have been prosecuted then and there. But you said that the matter is closed and no further action will be taken. We take it to mean just that. So who resurrected the case and what did you say to Hasobak? Where did you say whether you said it or it's in writing? What triggered that investigation and the prosecution that is now going on to happen?
Vice Speaker, there's nothing in writing that, nor is it required to be in writing to say that we have to open or close a case. There is no further investigation work on the Hatch Act violations. The fact is that the Hatch Act and CNMI ethics and election laws were violated by the Attorney General, and this impeachment article is about the fact that the governor chose to do nothing about it. Laws were broken and the governor chose to do nothing about it. The OPA followed all of the statutes, all of the laws. Although the investigation phase is completed, it's now into the legal phase.
I'm not done yet, Mr. Chairman.
And you still have the floor, Vice.
Thank you. So, as the public auditor for the CNMI, does anybody just come in and take a case and run with it? You said that the matter is closed and it is not to be prosecuted. So,
I'm sorry.
where are you in the picture?
Vice Speaker, my letter does not say it's not to be prosecuted.
Well, it says the matter is closed and no further action is to be taken.
Further clarification, if you read the letter, Vice, do you have the letter in front of you?
I have the letter in front of me.
Please read it on the second paragraph, last sentence.
I can read it.
It says no further
action will be taken.
No, read it again. It says no further action is contemplated. I think you may have to...
My question then, so further action is now being contemplated or further action has been contemplated? So where is the letter that says, let's start action now?
There is no such letter and there is no requirement for such a letter.
So when did it begin? When did the prosecution or the opening of the case begin? We want to know. I mean, so Hasselback, are you saying that Hasselback is the lead person in this case, so then he just comes in and then starts?
Well, it's, he's a legal counsel and he doesn't just decide things on a whim. It's a very careful thought process, and that's through that process is when legal action is taken.
Let me ask another question.
Mm-hmm.
You cited violations of our CNMI laws.
Mm-hmm.
You told that to the governor, and the governor responded back that he does not agree with you. So you just dropped the ball?
We didn't drop the ball.
Well, you did, apparently, through that letter.
No, we wrote back that
2 years ago, you said to the governor, matter is closed. And he told you, so how would you expect that the governor would act when he did not even agree with you in the first place?
We wrote that letter when he took no action. So the facts remain that laws were violated by the Attorney General and the governor chose to do nothing.
The governor responded back to you that he disagreed with the points that you raised in your report, stating what your findings and what your recommendations are. So I have trouble reading that now that he has to take action. He did not agree with that. So you received a letter from him telling you that he did not agree with you. He did not agree with your findings and recommendations. So you just sent a letter back to him that the matter is closed.
Well, we also stated that we disagreed with his letter and that no further investigation was contemplated. But now it's into the legal phase because the fact remains that laws were violated, and this impeachment article is about the fact that the governor didn't do anything to his Attorney General who violated laws.
Mr. Chairman, I yield for now, but I'm not convinced, and I'm not convinced that I'm not convinced with what the public auditor is providing the committee, but at this point I will yield.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Before I recognize Representative Sablan, while you were discussing the matter, one of the questions that was raised, I believe, was either yourself or Chairman Torres, was, this issue of delegating the authority. And I did take the opportunity to look at our statute regarding the public auditor and his staff. 1 CMC 2305 F states, the public auditor may, when in his or her judgment it is necessary, delegate any duties and powers to any employees employed by the public auditor. The employees shall report their findings for review by the public auditor. So at least that legal question which has been raised is in our code, and it does allow the public auditor to delegate, based on his or her judgment, any duties or powers to his employees. Representative Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pai, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Mr. Pai, correct me if I'm wrong, but generally an investigative report out of the OPA has generally two parts, the findings and the recommendations. And I think more importantly is the recommendation part of it, because there's no sense conducting the investigation if nothing is going to happen at the end of the investigation. So in this particular case, an investigation was done, findings were made, and based upon those findings, a recommendation was made. And because the recommendations provided in this particular report was not followed by the governor, is it safe to say that particular investigation or case remains open?
Investigations,
or the case, or is the case still open until such time that the recommendation is addressed?
That's a possibility. Cases are routinely opened and closed and reopened again, depending on changes in circumstances, if there's new evidence. But in an audit sense, the finding would remain open until it's resolved. But on an investigation, it could remain open for years.
Was the findings and the recommendations ever addressed in this particular case?
The recommendations were made to the governor for disciplinary action on the Attorney General, but it was never taken.
Thank you, Mr. Pai.
Thank you, Rep. Sablan. Any other members? Rep. Guerrero.
Just a simple question, Mr. Pai. Has Buckingham or the governor ever been convicted of a federal or CNMI crime?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, because you had mentioned earlier that they had with surety that they had broken some laws, but nobody is guilty of breaking any law unless they've been convicted, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're innocent in our system. They're innocent until proven guilty. But
Exactly.
We're saying that the investigation findings were that laws were violated, and so that's why now it's into the legal phase.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So they haven't been convicted yet. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Representative Tip. Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you raised your hands. Any other members?
Mr. Chairman, since we are on the with the public auditor and we don't want to be asking him to return, we have that concern that was brought up, Mr. Pai, on the ARA contract. And since you're here, I think this was briefly mentioned earlier about the ARA contract being investigated. Apparently in that meeting that was conducted by the Inspector General with the Procurement and Supply Director, one of your staff was also in that meeting. And then after that meeting, your investigator, a different investigator from the one that was with the Inspector General, came back to the Procurement and Supply Director's office to show him the report that was put together after the meeting with the Procurement and Supply Officer, meeting of the Inspector General and Mr. John Santos. Ms. Atalik Waned came back with that report. According to the Procurement and Supply Director, he signed the report. Do you have a copy of that report with the that was put together that he signed, the Procurement and Supply Director signed? And was there any reason why that report was not also part of the package that was transmitted to us on the ARA source contract, Mr. Auditor?
I don't have that report. I think the investigation was done by the Inspector General's office, so I think that office would have all of the investigation files.
So, if it was, why would your staff be the one to be hand-carrying a document from the Inspector General for the Procurement and Supply Director to sign? If you say that that investigation was done by the Inspector General, what was that report all about? Why do we have a report that she had to bring down to the Procurement and Supply Director to sign? What's that report about?
We were assisting the Inspector General's investigator.
So whose report is that? Is that the Inspector General's report or is that PAO's report?
The investigation report came from the Inspector General's office. They conducted the investigation. OPA provided assistance. So the Inspector General would have the investigation files.
So since you collaborated or you work with the Inspector General, wouldn't you have a copy of that report?
Well, the report that was published, I think we all got copies of it.
So is that the report that we're talking about, or is that the report that was brought by WANET to the Procurement and Supply Director is a different report?
I think it's a different report, and I think that would be in. I don't have that report.
So could we have a copy of that report? That was asked of the chairman to please see if we can have it. Can you make an effort to please provide us with a copy of that report?
I'll have to ask Mr. Hasselback because we may have to contact the Inspector General's office to see if we have access to their files.
I think I asked earlier if you have a copy of that report with you. since your staff participated in that investigation. And I think I understand that you would have a copy of that report.
No, we don't have
So-
that, Vice Speaker.
Point of information.
I recognize Representative Tep for point of information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the note of the Vice Speaker's request, if I am correct, and I think this was brought up earlier, there is an Office of Inspector General, U.S. Department of Interior, dated July 14 report on investigation. Is that what you are?
I'm not referring to that. I have a copy of that
Okay.
in the
So let
package
me
that
provide
I
further.
received.
May I provide further information, Mr. Chairman?
Proceed.
That there was a joint investigation of 2 counts conducted by the AG and in support working, collaborating with
Clarification, not the AG. I think you meant the OPA.
IG, Inspector General. It's a joint investigation between the IG and the OPA on 2 counts. And those 2 counts, or one of the count, was misconduct. And the investigation found, as a result of the investigation, it found that there was no violation of federal laws. However, they found that there was a possible violation of CNMI law, so it went further beyond that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And also to further clarify, I've been listening to the questions that have been asked by the Vice Speaker to the public auditor. I think the Vice Speaker may be referring to either the, let me go back, let me back up a little and maybe answer this by asking you some questions. During an investigation, the end product of an investigation would be a report that in this case was published. Okay, prior to the development of the final report, if you will, the published report, there may be other, we can call it reports of interviews, and maybe handwritten. It's basically the collection of evidence or statement of witnesses.
Yes, correct.
What do you call those documents?
Exactly as you said, it could be a report of interview. They document what was talked about during the interview.
And I think that's the clarification that needs to be made here. I think the Vice Speaker may be requesting if you have copies of the IG's interview reports, if you will, which the Director of Procurement and Supply, Mr. Sablon, stated that one of your investigators came up to his office, asked him to review some documents and to check whether his statements were correct, if he wanted to make any corrections to it. I think that's the document that at least I am thinking maybe of the reference document in this case, not necessarily the final published report. And Mr. Sablon recalls, or didn't really recall whether he signed it, but he did remember Ms. Juanette Atalik coming by and showing him a document and asking him basically to review it. And that's why I asked you the question that the procedure for conducting investigative interviews, when I asked you whether there's a standard procedure for an investigator to have the witness review the document, you stated, no, it is not standard practice. So can you maybe elaborate or explain what happened?
I don't believe it's a standard practice. It's at the discretion of the investigator. Some reports of interviews are just documented by the investigator, and sometimes they would feel more comfortable if the interviewee would sign a statement, and that's what might have happened in this case. Or sometimes the interviewee will say, well, I'd like to sign a statement, and so they will prepare one for the interviewee and then show it to them and see if they agree with that prepared statement, they'll sign it.
Thank you, Mr. Pai. And I believe that maybe the document that the Vice Speaker is asking if you have in your possession.
I think so too, and I don't, to my knowledge, we don't have any of the Inspector General's investigation files here with us.
So maybe, and I don't know, but maybe whatever document she had signed or reviewed by Mr. Sablanes, possibly even signed, she would probably have turned that over to the IG.
Yes, but we'll search our files also.
Okay. If you can, please, and maybe turn that over to this panel.
Yes, we'll do.
Vice Speaker, anything else?
Yes. Before Mr. Pai leaves us this morning, I want to go back again to that ARA with regards to the resolution that was put out by the Senate on the investigation of the ARA contract. On the delegation of authority, Mr. Pai, I have information here saying that on April 24th, Mr. Hasselback sent you a note that to get the ball rolling on the investigation, and I think it's he's referring to the ARA investigation on the ARA ARA contract. He was talking to you about a letter to the Senate President on the delegation, on the subject of delegation of authority. So that was in April 24th. And then on May 17th, you had spoken about a letter, that letter that was drafted with regards to your recusal from the ARA contract investigation. And then on May 26th, you instructed, or you did a letter or a memo on delegation of authority, appointing or delegating Zabanta to be acting while you are gone, and also noting that James Taylor, another attorney in your office, would then assume responsibility should Ross Zapanta be out of the Commonwealth. And I want to verify finally on June 18, in response to Senate President's or in response to that resolution, Senate Resolution 1763, you had written to the Senate President saying that you're going to recuse yourself. So who then, because you were still off island when that letter was written,
yes,
who then was the acting or was acting on your behalf when that letter was sent?
It was signed by Ross Zapanta, so he was on island on that date.
because he was the person acting on your behalf.
Yes.
So who was actually conferring responsibility to whom? To Hasselback, in that case, because you're saying that Mr. Hasselback will act in my stead and have ultimate responsibility for the investigation, analysis, and prosecution of any wrongdoing that may be appropriate, may be discovered, and as may be appropriate, that may be discovered as may be appropriate. In this letter, he was delegating, Zapanta was delegating Hasselback to take the lead, to be the person in charge of prosecuting the ARA contract?
No, it was me through Ross Zapanta, because I was off island. So Ross Zapanta has the public auditor's delegated authority while I'm off island, and so he signed that letter. But I'm the one who's delegating it to George Hasselback.
Can that be done? Why did you do that when you were off island?
I wasn't physically here. So normally when the department heads travel, they delegate an acting in case something needs to be signed. But it's still my delegation to George Hasselback.
So what then becomes of what power, title does Hasselback then assume at that point?
He was delegated specific authority for the ARA investigation.
So this is only for the ARA investigation and nothing else?
Yes, Vice Speaker.
Thank you. I have no further question from here.
Any other members? If not, and if there's no objection from the members, I wish to excuse Mr. Michael Pai. Mr. Michael Pai, we want to thank you for appearing before this body again, for your patience and for your cooperation. You are excused, meaning you will probably not be asked to return. And with that, thank you again and have a nice day.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the panel. Thank you.
Is our Sergeant at Arms here? Mike, since our Sergeant at Arms is probably around, can you just inform Mr. Hasselback to please come in? Thank you. Why don't we take a short, maybe a 5-minute recess?